Imagine an entire city plotting, scheming and scheming behind your back just to prevent your rise. Everyone spoke your name in secret, thinking that they could destroy the dream of success of a handful of people. But lo and behold, despite all those dirty plans, you are standing tall. Today, not their gossip, but your success made the headlines. All eyes are on you now, because your rise is big enough to bring even a city to its knees. Those who ganged up against you are now baffled. Write 999 in the comments. Now don't just be a spectator, be a part of the story. With your support, we will become a giant family of 5,000 people. Subscribe now, turn on notifications and join us. Because you are the winner of the story. Those who wanted to block your path are now applauding your name. Now the stage is yours, all eyes are on you. There's a reason the tallest oaks spend years reaching their roots deep into the earth before ever breaking the surface. Before the world ever witnesses the greatness above, something steady, something silent, is anchoring down below. Life's storms don't come to uproot you, they arrive to show just how deeply you've been planted. Sometimes, when trust begins to unravel, it's not the sound of thunder that signals the change. It's more like the quiet winding of a music box in the hands of a watchful craftsman, every spring and cog turning with a purpose, every note meant to be revealed at the right time. You may look back and think those setbacks were just a string of accidents. But if you step back, you'll see it was all part of a bigger choreography, a carefully written play performed behind velvet curtains. You see, nothing about your life has been random. Not the betrayal, not the silence, not even those moments when it felt like every door slammed shut right in your face. There are times when the people you trusted most seem to change overnight, as if they were actors reciting lines written long before you knew there was even a script. All along, an invisible author was letting certain chapters unfold, not to break you, but to unearth the strengths you hadn't yet learned to recognize. Like a painter adding one more hidden layer beneath the canvas, those who tried to set you back were simply painting depth into your destiny. The confusion, the whispers, the sudden cold shoulders, they weren't signs that your story was ending, but that something powerful was about to be uncovered. Just as a blacksmith needs heat and pressure to forge unbreakable steel, your life needed moments that didn't make sense, moments when everything seemed to be falling apart, only so you could discover the fire within you that can never be extinguished. The truth is, sometimes the hands that push you out are the very ones God uses to move you into position. You may have wondered why certain doors had to close, why trusted voices went silent, or why you felt so alone at times. But every silent season was a setup for revelation. Every delay was an invitation to dig deeper, to stretch your roots further, to discover a foundation that disappointment can't shake and betrayal can't crack. Most folks see the surface. They see the layoffs, the broken friendships, the sudden changes, and they call it bad luck. But those who've walked with God a while know better. They know every setback is a signal, an announcement that the roots are getting stronger, and that something unstoppable is getting ready to break through. You're not just living a life, you're being prepared for a purpose bigger than what you can see. The forces that moved against you thought they were writing your ending, but in truth, they were setting the stage for your unveiling. The hands you never saw, the plans you never knew about, they weren't there to harm you, they were there to reveal what you carry inside. You see, nothing that's been done against you has power to define you, it can only serve to refine you. Sometimes, the people you counted on the most are the very ones who are used to awaken something in you that couldn't rise up any other way. You might have questioned, why me? Why now? But looking back, you'll see that every betrayal, every misunderstanding, was a tool in the hand of destiny, chiseling, sanding, and shaping you into someone unbreakable. If you've ever felt like you were being watched, like your every move was under a microscope, it's because you were never just an ordinary player in this game. Even your enemies could sense there was something about you they couldn't quite explain. While you went about your day, not knowing what was unfolding behind closed doors, the heavens were working behind the scenes, orchestrating a symphony of purpose even in your lowest valleys. What felt like loss was actually redirection. What seemed like loneliness was the beginning of your sanctuary. The hands you thought were against you were the very hands preparing your crown. In the moments you felt least seen, You were actually being positioned for the kind of breakthrough that can't be manufactured by human schemes. It's easy to curse the storm while you're standing in the rain, but the harvest always comes after the storm. Every tear, every late-night prayer, every unanswered question was watering the soil for your destiny. And when the sun breaks through again, it'll be clear to everyone that nothing could stop what was planted in you. Not rumors, not schemes, not even the betrayal of those you called family. In the silence, you found your own voice. In the rejection, you learned the acceptance that can only come from above. In the uncertainty, you discovered the certainty of your calling. What others saw as your ending, heaven called the beginning of your rise. If you love a good mystery, subscribe for the untold truths of Scripture. And so, when trust is quietly unwound, it's not to expose you but to reveal what's been growing beneath the surface all along. Just like that oak, you may have spent seasons growing underground, unnoticed, but you're about to burst forth in ways nobody saw coming. The roots have gone deep, the storm has passed, and what's rising up is stronger, bolder, and more resilient than anyone could have imagined. Just like a seed buried in the dark earth, your purpose has always been wrapped in mystery, hidden from the casual eye but known to the one who planted it. Above the surface, folks may only see dirt and darkness, but below, life is moving, roots are spreading, and the miracle is quietly unfolding, right when nobody suspects a thing. See, while some folks were plotting and scheming, they didn't realize they were moving according to a map they never drew. There are patterns in this world older than any grudge, deeper than any rumor. Every time your name was dragged through another whisper, every time a door was slammed in your face, something ancient was echoing through those halls, something only the wise can feel in their spirit. Out in the open, the masks were on, and the smiles were painted bright. Conversations twisted like winding country roads, never leading quite where they seemed. On the surface, it looked like just another round of gossip, just another chapter in a small-town story. But you, chosen one, weren't standing in the shallow end. You were being drawn into currents that run deep beneath the riverbed, currents that carry the stones and shape the land itself. Deeper down, trust became a currency traded like poker chips at a backroom table. Affection was a coat thrown over hidden motives, and alliances shifted like shadows at sunset. The games people played with your heart weren't just about you. They were part of a spiritual struggle bigger than any single conversation. Some thought they were pulling your strings, not realizing that every string they tugged was connected to a tapestry being woven by invisible hands. But it didn't even stop there. Beneath all the drama, beneath every rumor, beneath every handshake that came with a hidden dagger, there was a plan being carried out beyond anything flesh and blood could orchestrate. What looked like chaos to the world was, in the eyes of heaven, a dance of purpose. While people scrambled to rewrite your story, the author of all was turning every plot against you into a page in your testimony. You see, the harder they tried to trap you, the higher they built the launchpad for your future. What they thought were chains became stepping stones. Their roadblocks turned into signposts. When you were surrounded by confusion, you were actually being ushered into clarity. Every plot to bring you down was another log thrown on the fire of your rising. If you could see the whole picture, you'd realize that nothing done in darkness could ever outmaneuver what was planned in the light. People in secret rooms tried to set the course of your destiny, not knowing they were just moving chess pieces in a game already decided. Even the obstacles were on schedule. The resistance was rehearsed. What looked like a trap was actually a training ground, every setback a sacred rehearsal for your comeback. God's been taking what others meant for harm and flipping it upside down, turning every accusation into a lesson, every loss into a lesson, every heartbreak into a harvest. There are levels to your life, rooms you haven't even entered yet, where purpose waits behind doors nobody else can open. The attacks that came against you weren't just random storms, they were the pressure that pressed the oil out of the olive, the friction that polished the diamond, the wind that carried the seed far beyond where it could have traveled on its own. Don't mistake the darkness for defeat. In the hidden places, gold is formed. Diamonds are made under pressure, pearls are born from irritation, and oaks grow tall because their roots push through the hardest ground. You have been moving through layers, layers of misunderstanding, layers of disappointment, layers of betrayal, and with each layer, You've been prepared for a level nobody else can occupy but you. So let them conspire, let them gather, let them plan. All the while, heaven is working behind the curtain, setting the scene for a reveal that will silence every doubter. The web they thought would trap you is the very thing lifting you above it all. The pattern is ancient, but the outcome is brand new. Your elevation, your freedom, your destiny unveiled at just the right time. Keep holding on. There's more going on than meets the eye. What others spun in secret, God is using to spin your story into a tapestry of glory. And when the curtain is pulled back, everyone will see that what was meant to break you was actually designed to build you. There are moments in life when you're not just stepping onto a stage, you're stepping into the ring with the wind itself. It's like trying to box with the breeze. You can't grab it, you can't pin it down, and you sure can't order it to change direction just because it makes others uncomfortable. That's what it felt like when you showed up, not just as a person, but as a shift, a new season blowing through an old, dusty room. This wasn't a neighborhood feud or a schoolyard rivalry. What came against you was facing something more than flesh and bone, something bigger than any vote or crowd. There's a kind of change that rolls in like spring after a long winter, making all the old plans and old fences look small and powerless. You weren't just another name on their list. You were the storm front nobody could prepare for. People tried to gather their numbers, to stack the deck against you, thinking strength is always about how many folks you can call to your side. But when a move of God shows up, it doesn't count heads. It doesn't check resumes. It doesn't worry about the crowd, because it knows the real power doesn't come from outside. It rises from within. They could sense something was different, even if they didn't have the words for it. Deep down, even your biggest doubters felt it in their bones. That standing in your way was like standing in front of a train with nothing but wishful thinking and a handful of pebbles. The harder they tried to slow you down, the more obvious it became that what was moving through you couldn't be boxed in or stopped up. They put up fences, but your destiny was never meant to be fenced in. They tried to hold back the river with buckets, not realizing it was the river that shaped the valley, not the other way around. Every effort to block your way just gave you more proof that you were walking with the wind at your back. This was a power shift they couldn't plan for and certainly couldn't contain. What had been set in motion wasn't about personality or popularity, it was about timing, about calling, about a divine agenda moving through you like sunrise breaking through the clouds. Their strategies, their meetings, their whispered plans became like sandcastles built too close to the tide, pretty for a moment, but swept away before the day was done. Sometimes God uses one person to shift the whole landscape, to turn the tables in a way nobody else sees coming. You were never meant to blend in, never meant to bow to what's comfortable. The old order can sense when its time is up, even if it can't admit it out loud. The chill in the air, the restlessness in the room, that's the sign that something is being uprooted so something new can grow. No matter how loud their voices, how many hands they joined together, it couldn't drown out the truth. What God set in motion in you couldn't be halted by opinion, slander, or even the strongest wall of resistance. They tried everything to stall your momentum, to build a dam across your river, but your purpose is tidal. It rises, it crashes, it breaks through every man-made barrier. You can try to bottle up a sunrise, but morning will always find a way in. You can put up shutters, but light finds the cracks. The spirit that was working in you was never asking for permission from those who'd grown comfortable with darkness. And the more they tried to keep the lid on what God was doing, the more it built up pressure, the more it gathered force, until finally, what had been hidden broke through for everyone to see. When you walk with a calling bigger than yourself, the world's resistance isn't a sign you're in the wrong place, it's proof you're on the right track. They felt the shift, even if they couldn't name it. They saw the change coming and tried to brace themselves, but you can't stand in the way of the season God's bringing. Spring will come, flowers will bloom, and rivers will run, no matter who tries to keep it winter. Trying to force unity among those with old wounds is like tying together broken branches with frayed string. Sure, they might hold for a moment, but when the wind comes, they'll snap right where the knots are weakest. That's what was happening all around you, whether you could see it or not. In the hush of back rooms and the quiet ping of secret group texts, folks who once kept their distance were now crowding around a common target. It's funny how bitterness can make folks forget old fights, at least for a little while. People who used to cross the street to avoid each other started sharing the same table, all in the name of a shared grudge. Grievances that had collected dust for years were put aside, and hands that never trusted each other before now tried to build something together. But just like patching up a leaky boat with nothing but duct tape, their unity wasn't built to last. They worked hard to build their web, hoping that if enough hands tugged in the same direction, they could catch something big. But those threads were thin, spun out of jealousy, old scores, and wounded pride. Under the surface, every person in that alliance carried their own hurt, their own secrets, their own storms brewing. They could play nice for a while, put on a united front, but deep down, each one was looking out for themselves, each one whispering their own doubts when nobody was watching. Hungry for timeless wisdom? Hit subscribe and feed your soul. When people come together out of fear or resentment, and not love or purpose, their agreement is shaky from the start. It's like a house built on shifting sand, looks fine until the rain comes. The truth is, no matter how many meetings they held or how many times they rehearsed their lines, the cracks were already there. Every alliance born out of old pain and new jealousy is just waiting for the day the pressure is too much, and the whole thing comes apart at the seams. There's a difference between true unity and forced alliance. Real unity is like a braided rope, each strand making the others stronger. But what they had was more like a tangle of old fishing lines, knotted up in a hurry, sure to snap the minute something pulled too hard. Each of them brought hidden agendas to the table, and the more they tried to tie themselves together, the more the old breaks showed through. They could hide it for a while. Smiles in public, agreements in whispers, nods across the room. But underneath, the fault lines were growing. Every person in that group carried their own disappointment, their own history with you, and their own personal reasons for wanting to see you stumble. That's no way to build anything lasting. They may have looked unified, but it was only a matter of time before their true colors began to show. The alliance they formed had no real root, no deeper purpose except to see you fall. That kind of bond never lasts. As soon as the winds changed or things got tough, you could bet those old arguments and hidden grudges would come right back up to the surface, splitting their unity wide open. In the end, all that effort to join forces did nothing but set up the perfect storm, one that would unravel their plans and send them scattering back to their separate corners. That's the way it goes when people come together for the wrong reason. The very thing they hoped would hold them together becomes the reason they fall apart. And while they were busy weaving that web, heaven was already preparing to shake the whole thing loose. Sometimes life feels like you're standing in the middle of a wheat field at harvest time, and you don't even realize the sorting has begun. The workers may be busy with their tools, but there's a gentle hand sifting through every stalk, separating the fruitful from the empty husks, sorting what will nourish from what will simply blow away in the next breeze. That's what was happening all around you, right in the middle of all that noise and motion. On the outside, it looked like nothing more than a game. Faces smiling, hands moving chess pieces, conversations turning like gears. But underneath, something much bigger was taking place. There was a quiet tally being kept, every motive weighed, every word measured, every small betrayal counted and stored away. You might not have seen it, but heaven has its own way of keeping score, far beyond what the human eye can see. Those moments when you wondered if anybody noticed the truth? They were being written down in a place no liar can reach and no gossiper can erase. Each time a friend showed their true intentions, every time someone turned their back or hid their face when the storm rolled in, it was like a pen scratching in a hidden book. You may have felt overlooked, but nothing that matters ever slips through the hands of the one who watches over you. It's like a potter turning clay on the wheel, pressing here, shaping there, watching closely to see what form each vessel takes. The ones that crack under pressure, the ones that keep their shape, each is seen, each is recorded, not with anger, but with the wisdom of knowing who's ready for the next season. Those who tried to play both sides, to hide their hearts behind smiles and empty promises, may have fooled people for a while, but you can't fool the one who knows the inside from the outside. There's a reason the old-timers say the truth always comes out in the wash. Sometimes you've got to let the spin cycle run its course, let the stains show up, and let the sorting happen. Every act of loyalty, every hidden scheme, every word spoken behind closed doors, It's all being gathered for a day when the whole story will be told. You may not see the reckoning now, but the hourglass is turning, and the last grain will fall right on time. So let them make their moves, let them think they've played the perfect hand. A day is coming when all the accounts will be settled and every secret will be revealed. The records are being kept, not in anger or revenge, but in truth and justice. When the final chapter closes, every person will find out that nothing was wasted, and every choice, big or small, was seen and remembered. Just because you didn't see the scales tipping doesn't mean the scales weren't moving. In the end, the ones who thought their actions were hidden will realize their stories were written all along in a place no darkness can reach. When the day of sorting comes, it won't be about what was said in public, it'll be about what was done in secret, and every heart will stand in the light. There are times when walking through life is like making your way through a house of mirrors. Every reflection twisted, every image distorted, nothing quite where it ought to be. That's how it felt when they came at you, not just with words, but with stories shaped to turn the truth on its head. It wasn't just a quarrel in the open square, it was a silent storm in the mind, a battle waged not with swords but with whispers and rumors, each one blurring the lines between what really happened and what was only imagined. It started small, with a sideways glance or a joke that landed too hard. But before you knew it, they had built a carnival of confusion, rooms full of smoke, funhouse reflections, stories twisted until even you started to wonder what was real. The truth got stretched, and suddenly your acts of kindness became ammunition for their tales. Helping hands were painted as manipulation. Boundaries you set were recast as walls you built out of pride. The confidence you carried became the mask they said you wore to hide your flaws. It's a strange thing how folks can take a blessing and call it a curse, can watch someone rise and claim it must be a trick. But that's what they did. They turned every bit of progress in your life into another reason to doubt your heart. Even your victories became evidence against you. The more you tried to do right, the more they spun new tales, building a fantasy world where your intentions could never be pure and your motives were always suspect. And yet, in the middle of that maze, something miraculous was taking shape. Every false story, every twisted word, was working a change in you that nobody could predict. While they were busy drawing monsters on the walls, you were learning to walk by faith and not by sight. Every accusation forced you to dig deeper, to remember who you are when nobody is looking. The noise pushed you closer to the quiet where you could hear the still, small voice that never lies. Sometimes the very lies people use to try and break you become the stepping stones to your next level. The more they tried to define you with their rumors, the more God was redefining you from the inside out. Their confusion forced you to find clarity. Their noise trained you to listen for truth. Their rejection taught you how to stand alone without shrinking back. You learned that your worth doesn't come from the crowd's approval, and your story isn't written by people who only know one chapter. You found out that you're not just the sum of what others say, you're the product of every fire you've walked through and every storm you've survived. Their stories may have bent the truth, but they couldn't break the foundation under your feet. Even as they crafted their myths, heaven was charting your destiny. Every word meant to wound became a lesson in healing. Every story meant to trap you became a lesson in freedom. And with every attempt to paint you as the villain, they were only drawing the outline of the hero you were destined to become. So let them talk. Let them build their imaginary worlds. At the end of the day, the truth will always outlast the rumor, and your purpose will stand strong when every false story falls apart. The real victory isn't that you survived their psychological battle. It's that you came out wiser, stronger, and even more sure of the calling on your life. In the midst of their barrage, the heat of their scrutiny forged something within you that could not be undone. Their efforts to exploit perceived frailties only served to temper a new resolve. The image they fought to destroy had never truly existed. Instead, a figure immune to their devices was quietly taking shape beneath their very eyes. This was not random malice from distant strangers, but a campaign orchestrated by those who knew your rhythm and secrets, who thought their knowledge granted them the keys to your undoing. They pored over your history, repurposing moments of trust as ammunition, storing every shared secret for some future battle. Every kindness once given was now weaponized in the hope of crafting a narrative that would stick. They rummaged through your past as though digging for artifacts, sifting through the remnants of your younger years to construct arguments for your unworthiness. Old family disagreements were repainted as evidence, friendships recast as cautionary tales, every relationship scrutinized for flaws that might be magnified into fatal weaknesses. Yet while they worked tirelessly to map your soft spots, they overlooked the quiet metamorphosis at work within you. Their relentless probing became the pressure needed to trigger change at the deepest level. Where they saw only weaknesses to exploit, new forms of resilience were forming, silent and indestructible. The weapons they prepared would no longer find their mark. The coalition that came against you brought with it not just shared objectives but personal baggage, old wounds, grudges, and silent competitions. Many could not forgive your independence or the peace you carried that their chaos could never touch. Where manipulation had failed, frustration grew. As the conspiracy reached its zenith, internal fractures began to show. The same forces that drew them together now drove them apart. Isolation was not the punishment they imagined, but a necessary space for recalibration. In the quiet, new strengths took root, vision cleared, and possibilities previously out of reach came into focus. The hush around you was not an empty echo but a space teeming with the promise of new beginnings. Silence became your greatest ally, a strategic retreat rather than a sign of defeat. The words you chose not to speak became shields, each moment of restraint fortifying you for a victory that would be witnessed in due course. Patience replaced impulsivity, as wisdom guided you toward moves that would reveal their purpose only with time. Invisible allies moved alongside you, orchestrating opportunities and shielding you from blows you never saw coming. While adversaries reveled in their performance, unseen support was quietly stacking the odds in your favor. Their persistent fixation was not, at its core, about you, but about what you represented, a reminder of everything they refused to become. The relentless attempts to undermine you betrayed an awareness, even if subconscious, that your story was part of a pattern much larger than any of them could admit. In their circles, elaborate tales took the place of reality, each retelling reinforcing a worldview where the truth was unwelcome. Their gatherings became rituals in bitterness, where grievance was sanctified and deception revered. With each retelling, the mythology grew until to question it would be to unravel their own sense of identity. But the friction they brought was the catalyst for a seismic shift within you. What began as a campaign of sabotage transformed you into a pillar that could not be shaken. The slanders, instead of wounding, became stepping stones. Each accusation earned you a new layer of spiritual armor, every disappointment a new level of understanding. At the appointed moment, the tide turned. What was hidden burst into view, impossible to ignore, reshaping the very ground on which the old order stood. The tables were set for a reversal so undeniable that it carried the weight of destiny itself. The architects of the original campaign found their stories unspooling in public, their unity unraveling as the inconsistencies grew impossible to reconcile. The exposure was complete, not because of any direct rebuttal, but because falsehoods cannot sustain themselves indefinitely. Their narratives collapsed under their own weight, each contradiction a silent confession that the truth was never on their side. Think you know the Bible? Subscribe to uncover the stories you've never heard. Amidst this unfolding, your life became a lens through which deeper realities were made visible. Those who had joined in the effort to tear you down found themselves revealed for who they truly were. The test had not been yours alone. It was a crucible for all involved, exposing intentions and drawing lines that would not soon fade. Without effort on your part, a new clarity emerged. Those unwilling or unable to walk the higher path drifted away, not by force, but by the natural separation that occurs when destinies diverge. The blessing was preserved, and with every departure, the path ahead became lighter. What some viewed as abandonment was, in fact, a divine shield. Relationships that might have diluted your future quietly faded, clearing space for the arrival of those aligned with the new direction your life was taking. When the breakthrough came, there was no confusion about the roots of your endurance. You emerged from the trial not marked by bitterness, but distinguished by the unmistakable imprint of a journey that could only have been guided by an intelligence beyond the human. Now, your story carries a weight that cannot be ignored. Where your name once triggered suspicion or debate, it now calls forth reflection. Conversations shift or fall silent, and old accusers struggle to reconcile the person you've become with the narrative they once so eagerly believed. What you embody is the triumph of growth over retaliation, elevation over bitterness, and dignity over destruction. By simply choosing to move forward, you rendered every attempt at sabotage irrelevant, every accusation powerless. Ultimately, those who plotted against you found themselves enacting the very plan they thought to oppose. In their zeal to diminish your impact, they amplified it. Every move against you became evidence of a protection and purpose far greater than their designs. The page has turned, every wound is now a badge of honor, every trial a testament, and every adversary an unwitting signpost pointing to just how unbreakable, how destined you truly are.